You're listening to Convenience Matters, brought to you by NACS. We'll talk about what we see at stores and what the future may hold for our industry.
The whole world is short-staffed right now. Be kind to those who showed up. That's on a t-shirt at 36 Lyn, one of the more progressive convenience stores in our industry. It's also how they do business. We're going to talk about that in today's podcast. Joining us today is Lonnie McQuirter, Director of Operations at 36 Lyn Refuel Station in Minneapolis. Welcome to the show, Lonnie.
Thanks for having me on again, Jeff. Pleasure to be here.
So we started out by talking about the T-shirt, which we see you wear regularly. We've seen it in the Wall Street Journal. We've seen it in various other places. But, let's just start out by talking about how do you do business? So more than half of our industry we talk about over and over again is somebody that's an independent businessman that has one or a couple stores. That's who you are. But you also act like somebody that's much bigger. So kind of take us through your whole operations and I guess just start by telling us about 36 Lyn.
Thanks for the question, Jeff. Yeah, so 36 Lyn Refuel Station, believe it or not, is turning 18 on June 9th, which is just a couple short months away. So I started off June 9th, 2005, and really just set out to try to be marginally better than our competitors, and then trying to grow from there. We try to focus on is number one, the employee experience, because our customers can't have a great experience if our employees don't. So that started by making sure that our staff at the time had the tools they needed to make sure they felt adequately supported and trained, as well as, felt comfortable working in a convenience store gas station environment, which, tends to be the butt of a lot of jokes. And I can tell you something, Jeff, nothing has ended more conversations at a cocktail party faster than letting the people know that you work at a gas station, which is something that each day I get up, I'm looking to change as, I believe, I'm actually honored to be around many NACS folks because you guys all seem to be, have that vision as well of how do we change that perception and stereotypes that a lot of people, I find are misplaced, well-meaning, but very misplaced perceptions of our industry.
So you were saying, for people that hate cocktail party chatter, I guess that's a great way to end a conversation by just saying, I run a gas station, then, you don't have to talk anymore. But, how do you take it from when somebody says that to take it in a different direction and communicate and maybe at the end they go, oh, well, I'm really intrigued. I don't need to run screaming now.
Yeah, it's a great question. Sometimes it all depends on how you frame the narrative, right? It's always in how you discuss it. Because if I said I've got a business that holds the world record for charging the most EV vehicles in a 24-hour period, or if I mentioned that my business was, a 3-time honoree of Inc.'s 5,000 fastest growing companies in the United States, of which I believe in convenience store side, I think Parker's is the only other one that's been honored with that. It steers the conversation differently, or mentioning that you're the local kind of town hall, or you're the place where it's almost like an episode of Cheers where everyone knows your name. It's really the messaging and how you position yourself, which, I think right now it's not so much our operations or the things that we do in this industry. I think it's mainly an image issue right now.
And when you started almost 18 years ago, you had said the focus is on the employees, make the employees happy, make them buy in, and it becomes a little easier for everything else down the road. You also do a lot in terms of telling employees as part of their onboarding what it means. Can you describe how do you go and reframe what they're doing so it's a little bit more than a job?
That's a great point. A lot of employers, and this isn't just for our industry, they work so very hard to get people to apply for jobs and to get them inside the door. And then when it comes to the onboarding process, it's almost like, here's a stack of papers, right? Here's some virtual learning that you will do by yourself. And you've only got, a week to figure it out, and then you're left on your own, right? With us, I think we do things a little bit different. That we really do a lot of hand holding initially, from the how we attract talent to how we interview, and then how we onboard, and then how we handhold to help them, because it's a continuous process with us when it comes to employee training. Even for myself, we get a lot of new products in each month from different suppliers, and sometimes we forge relationships with new wholesalers as well, where we're bringing new products, and we really need to make sure that we know what differentiates the new product on the shelf and why customers should maybe give it a try versus some of our more conventional items that are also on the shelf, which we have a tendency to lean toward. And again, we're a convenience store that has a lot of the same items that many of our competitors do. It's those other 40% of goods that you can't find anywhere across not only convenience store industry, but also many of our grocery and cooperatives as well that aren't carrying the same items. So making sure that the staff knows, and that they can give a really colorful answer to when someone says, "What is this? Have you tried this before?" We have a well-educated response. We're prepared to answer those questions there.
All right, Lonnie. So I'm late. Sorry, but I'm jumping in anyway. So I understand, I've been to your store before, and you have a lot of local products, which I think is pretty amazing, because when I say I've been in your store is not the, 10,000 square foot monstrosities that a lot of our retail friends are building these days. It is a very, close-knit little store there.
It's comfortable.
It is comfortable, but not as small as Rachel's in New York City by far. So, but you pack I'm saying this because I want to drive the point that you pack a lot of punch in a small space, and local products being one of them.
Yeah, fortunately, I was coming up in the convenience store business around the time where you guys were talking about SKU optimization and really focusing on your top sellers, and that created a lot of room and opportunity for us to incorporate many locally sourced and better for you options inside the convenience store. It kind of led down this pathway of having a lot of locally sourced and better for you items. Wasn't necessarily, this modern push now where it's almost like out of guilt, or, someone feeling like they have to do it because they're feeling pressure from shareholders or for their customers. It's really, bore out of the fact that I couldn't find anything I wanted to eat inside my own store. That's a problem, especially when I'm paying for the inventory. So it started out a little bit selfish, and then, had employees and then customers also mention items that they found to be really amazing. And we did our best to try to figure out how to procure them and get them on our shelves, which, believe it or not, can be extremely difficult to find suppliers, especially going back to, 13 years ago, trying to convince certain suppliers that they're okay selling their products into a convenience store gas station, which we ran into a wall with some, and a lot of apprehensions where people just didn't see the vision of how their products could sell, or, feeling that it would damage their brand to be sold on amongst the same items of some more of the conventional convenience store wear.
So instead of having a truck pull up every now and then and drop off things in a very coordinated, convenient fashion, are you dealing with vendors coming in and out with or is it mailing stuff? Chris had alluded to Rachel Krupa, who has the Goods Mart in New York, and she was talking about, I think she got dozens of packages a week from various vendors. I assume it's the same type of thing, and you just need to be really coordinated on what you're getting and when you need to order it.
Great question. Yeah, it differs in some ways. We have some key suppliers on that have worked really well for us. One of them, and I want to mention them by name because I believe they're very innovative in what they do. It's Co-op Partners Warehouse, which is the wholesale arm of one of the largest cooperatives in the United States and the world. But they had the solution of cross-docking, where they were able to help smaller producers to get greater reach of their products there by way of sharing resources with the trucking. And then also on that question, I'd be remiss not to mention Peace Coffee, one of our longest relationships with local organization, and also one that's really into fair trade. Is we get our product procured from them most times of the year by bicycle. So they are sending the product about 7-mile bike ride to the store, on a weekly basis via bike. And this is in the dead of winter. So you figure that when it's a true 20 below zero in late January, early February, into when it's, 80 degrees out, mid July into August. And it's always a spectacle when they arrive, because they kind of carry this little, bicycling trailer on the back, and there's a little bit of show to it. But honestly, the viability of them, delivering their products via bike has worked for them, and I'm happy to support that view of alternate forms of transportation. We have a DC fast charger on site, and we have a base of customers that they will never drive, and they come inside the store frequently and purchase many things inside. And we also have numerous customers that don't live in Minneapolis that are, only stopping by to refuel up their vehicle and head on out. So helping understand that those differences of the customers and need to kind of treat everyone as an individual is, something that, certainly going to SOIs over the years, it's kind of helped me be comfortable with, because prior to this in the industry, you always heard things about converting that outdoor customer to an indoor customer. How do you get that extra dollar ring, when really you need to look at, people as being separate categories and treat them as such. And that's definitely helped and taken some stress off me and the staff, and really helped us to embrace the customers that we have in front of us, focus on what they need, and then kind of go from there and take it one customer interaction at a time, as opposed to trying to obsess about how do we compare to the person down the road and what they're doing differently, which, there is some things to be learned from that. But, really for us, it's focusing on who's in front of us.
Lonnie, you in particular have really embraced everything that NACS has to offer. And you're a single store operator, right? And Jared Sheeler, when he was chairman, that was his thing too. It was like small, it doesn't matter how big you are or how small you are, to get engaged and to be involved. I mean, that's really, where it's at. And he, we heard from him on how he always, feels how small operators should be involved in NACS and should be taking advantage of everything that goes on. When we were doing our planning for the NACS show for the education content, your name was dropped a lot as potential speakers.
So heads up on that.
Yeah, right. So there's 90,000 of guys kind of like you out there, and they're not all involved. So I'm just always curious, like you took that step, you took that leap, like what's it going to take for everybody else to kind of realize that, that there's a lot of benefit here in getting involved with an industry, no matter what your size is?
That's a great question, Chrissy. I'll start off by saying small operators, they need organizations like NACS more than the larger ones, I'd say. And that's really to learn about the basics of the industry, to really get that network set up, because outside looking in, when you're an outsider, from my first NACS show, which I believe it was 2008 in Chicago, but I would drive to most of the NACS shows, and I would stop in a lot of convenience stores. And on my way, it's kind of like a journey toward, getting to the NACS show, where you're stopping by other convenience stores to refill, and you're kind of stealing ideas from them and looking for certain vendors that you would see in prominent positions, or even more subtle ones on your way to the NACS events, whether it be from the exteriors and site maintenance to the inside with some of the technologies they're using and implementing successfully in their sites. Sometimes we really get stuck in our environment and kind of where we're at. I had a good friend and, colleague locally in Minnesota bring up the fact that a lot of how people think is based on their geography, where they're at geographically in the world or in the country. And sometimes to get unstuck in your thinking, you have to get out from that environment. I think one of the easiest ways for us small operators is attend the NACS show, SOI, more so if you can't make the NACS show. And, sometimes make a road trip out of it, as, our current chair, Don Rhodes, has done recently. And
I know.
It's amazing what, travel can do for the mind. And I think we're in an industry where there is so much fun that can be had just by embracing that little bit. And, to be perfectly honest, I was struggling to grow and struggling to find traction, dealing with a lot of people locally at first, which it's changed over the years. But, I really formed and forged a lot of key relationships by attending the NACS show and NACS SOI more than I did at some of the local trade show and events here, to be honest. So for me, being a part of NACS is a necessity. And I think for many small operators that are stuck inside their stores, beating their head up against the wall, trying to figure out how to make a go of things, I think this is a worthwhile investment, just reaching out and just beginning those conversations.
Well, I want to go back to what we started at the beginning, talking about the T-shirt that you have. Along the way, there's been a lot of things that have come up, and obviously the pandemic, the last few. Where'd you come up with this idea for this T-shirt, which, I'll say again what it says. The whole world is short-staffed right now. Be kind to those who showed up. And it is, kind of become famous. I see you wearing it quite a bit, like when you're on interviewed in various places and, of course, in your stores. So talk about how you came up with it and how it may have changed the way people think in your stores, both customers and employees.
Yeah, great question. I'd like to say I created the pithy saying, but unfortunately, like many great ideas, I stole it, or I took it and ran with it. A friend of mine, Bruce Newstead, he's the president of a local retailer association in Minnesota here, but he had shared that with me, that it was on a drive-through window, I think, of one of a quick serve restaurant, and I looked at it. It was completely text-based, and I'm like, we can jazz this up. We can make this shirt cool, and we can run with this, because there's a lot of people that identify with what's going on right now with, one, the labor shortages from the lockdowns and from people staying safe, and also with the unrest in the cities. It gave cause for a lot of people not to want to participate in the workforce, and it's still, unfortunately, as you guys observed, all the way from Alexandria to Minnesota to Washington State, where Don's at. It's something we're still feeling across all industries and across all, I think, age groups. Is still this very pervasive lack of appreciation for those that are working. And I don't think it's necessarily an income thing, or it's a one part of the country or other. I think it's really something that we're all facing. And so the T-shirt's something for my staff that they love to get when we rolled it out, and I think some of their friends and family wanted them as well, which was surprising. So we had more made up, and I've shipped shirts as far as the UK, all the way down to Indiana, from people that have requested them. And it's really something that it's given me and the staff a great deal of pride in, is, understanding and recognizing those, whether we call them frontline employees or the, COVID heroes. I think those of us, over the past 3 years, whether they're at 1600 Duke or they're sitting in a 7-Eleven in Las Vegas, have all worked really hard to make sure there's some semblance of society and some semblance of being civil with each other. And that's a story that hasn't been told as much in the post-COVID world. It's, there's real issues going on, and there's people that were in good positions that really, did some great heroic things, but there's also the everyday people that continue to do everyday things that kind of hold up and allow, the first responders to do what they can do. We had a lot of firemen and trauma surgeons, and also EMT stop by the store before they're off to work. And that's the same case in many convenience stores told thousands of times each day across our country. And I think not recognizing those frontline employees, it's kind of only telling part of the story there when you kind of forget about that employee that's selling you coffee and Tums and, Visine before you head off to a long day of work, fighting fires or, helping people, across the country. So.
Good point.
You also talked about road trips earlier. I think when we talk about telling stories and reframing things, whether it's on a T-shirt or whether it's on a store-by-store basis or whether it's on a larger basis, like what NACS or other organizations on the state level or otherwise can do, there's a lot of opportunities to just reframe things. And how you said in the beginning, it's like, well, think about the world record for number of cars charged. It's talking about that our industry serves roughly
Wait,
100.
you guys talked about that? The world record?
We talked about that.
What's the record?
I'll let him talk about that.
In April 2014, I set 36 Lyn set the world record of charging the most EVs in a 24-hour period. We charged technically 85, officially 85 vehicles, but it was actually over 100 EVs in 24 hours at the store. So,
wow.
It was a long day, and we really thought
planned that, right? It wasn't just some organic weird thing where it's like, wow.
No, it took about a month and a half of planning in conjunction with Zeph Energy, which is, I'm not sure if they're still a Fuels Institute member, but prior Fuels Institute member there. But yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
And hopefully your demand charges aren't like more than the city of Minneapolis because of that burst of charging.
Right.
We
blackouts.
We definitely worked hard at some discussions prior to engaging in that 24-hour event. So,
well, there's your newest T-shirt.
Yeah.
So you can use that, and as you start your mail order business, because I'm sure people are gonna be like, I want one of those T-shirts now. So just charge a lot for those T-shirts. Don't send them out for free. But it is all about stories, and I think you've done a terrific job not only telling the 36 Lyn story, but the industry story. And I had mentioned seeing on TV, seeing you in newspapers, national newspapers, telling our story. And not necessarily an immediate benefit for Lonnie and team in the store, but it certainly helps explain what's going on with gas prices, what's going on with other issues. How did you get into that game? Was there baby steps? Was there anything that you'd like to suggest to others out there that would like to tell the industry story? And how do you do it in a way that you feel comfortable?
That's a good question. Number one, I have to say this is just get started. There's so many people that sacrifice, good for perfection a lot of times. Maybe I'm getting that phrase wrong, but they become so obsessed with making sure that they're saying the right thing or doing absolutely the right thing possible, as opposed to just getting started. And whether it be writing an article to, the editor, or whether it be participating when someone's asking you to speak for a local community event, or for a local high school, or for your local trade organization, just participate. It's, we would be a lot further as a society, and we would be a lot able to embrace change effectively if more people are participating and have a seat at the table and just speak up on issues that matter to them. It's, I always mention to the staff, it's the little things that we do, how we start the day, that make a huge impact on all of our customers. It could be as simple as a small greeting, to the music that we're playing, to the smells and the odors that they're smelling from the lot, the parking lot and the forecourt, to coming inside the store. It's like, what do you want that first impression to be? If the bathroom's great, if the coffee's made and it smells good, and if the pumps are clean, that reflects on you, and more so, it also reflects on the community that we're in, and it's creating those good, fond memories that people remember, as opposed to the things that people obsess about on the news or on TikTok about, stores being looted, or about some Karen going off on a helpless employee. It's like, we need to do more about making some good, some good memories here. And I think that's, that's really something that, I kind of take into heart. And that's, as a small operator, that's our easiest opportunity to kind of, grow in that way from a branding and marketing standpoint. That, we may not have economies of scale for our, dealing with supply chain issues. We may not have a solid fuel strategy where we can necessarily hedge, higher gas prices. We just have to deal with what, the market's throwing at us. But the things we can control, how we show up in each morning, making sure we're changing lights, keeping our lot clean, and we've got a clean uniform on and that we're friendly. Those are a baseline. So smaller operators, whether it be participating when a reporter calls you up, or speaking at a NACS event or other industry event, it's just a matter of showing up and responding when someone's reaching out to you. Now, that being said, I do think, again, I really like this month's NACS magazine where you guys are talking so much about getting back to basics, about whether people are having issues in the forecourt or just really making sure that we're just covering our bases, because 99% of the issues that we face in the day-to-day business running a convenience store, it's all in the basics, right? And, again, with the staff, it's about, are we completing the checklist every day? Are we following it? And are we really embracing it and understanding why we're doing certain things? And sometimes over the years, you get a little upset with explaining the whys so much, but the whys are very important, especially to frontline employees, is why we do what we do and why it needs to happen. And when you paint it from a picture of how the customers are seeing things from that other side of the counter, so looking at it from the opposite way, from the customer's end of things, I think really helps, and it goes a long way of kind of building that that work ethic and kind of building that zeal and desire to kind of be a step above and do better, where a lot of people are kind of, from time to time getting this mindset of, things are dead end. There's no hope here, or why should I try? And really, it's like, no, you should try every single day. Be good at be the best person at whatever job it is that you have. Always try to be the best.
Good advice. Do you want to fix mistakes? Do you want to head off a mistake now, or do you want to have to fix it later when it could be a PR nightmare? Right?
Exactly.
Well, I'm not sure we're going to come up with a better ending than that, so we probably should just end there. Lonnie, as you talked about, you're a student of the industry, and we've seen you, Chrissy and I have been with you in Miami, going to stores that have nothing to do with convenience. They're not convenience stores, but just watching how you visit that store and what can be interesting, even though it's a clothing store. It's fascinating what you can learn when you pick up and you visit things. So for those who are anywhere near Minneapolis, go check out 36 Lyn. There's all kinds of things that you'll find there. Amazing bathrooms, by the way, Lonnie. A lot going on in a small footprint. And there's even been bands playing on your roof. So hopefully that's coming back sometime soon when you have the Open Streets Festival again. But Go there and visit. You'll learn something, and talk to Lonnie. And hey, there's a TV star there from Big Brother, but that's a whole nother episode. Thanks for joining us today, Lonnie, and thanks to you all for listening to Convenience Matters.
Convenience Matters is brought to you by NACS and produced in partnership with Human Factor. For more information, visit convenience.org.